One team's quest for premiership glory ends tonight, and the other will continue on to this Saturday night's grand final. Port Adelaide versus Glenelg in the preliminary final. Minor Premiers Magpies look to go to their third consecutive grand final, and the underdog Rebels looking to get to their first grand final since 2017. This is the Softball SAC Match Premier League, and we play on Glenelg. Hello and welcome to the live coverage. I'm James Harris, your host, and alongside me is the play-by-play gold standard Eric Bulnar, and with all the Eastern special comments is Peter Williams. Good evening.
Well, James, I have a simple question for you. Do you believe in magic? Because if you do, and if you are a fan of fantasy or the fairy tale, then the Glenelg Rebels are probably the team for you. Nobody picked them really even to make the Final Four. I mean, they were always a shot with the recruit of Yo Grauer, who's the drought breaker in the South Australian parts. But no one really picked them to be a serious shot of contending for a premiership. And here they are, one win away from potentially just doing that. They're called the Comeback Queens. They just do not quit. We'll have a lot more on them throughout it. But the Magpies, if they can get to the grand final and then they can win and knock over West Torrens again, they can kind of prove that they're the team of the last 3-4 years. So there's a dynasty on the line for the Magpies and a Cinderella story on the line for the Rebels. It should be an interesting one.
Not
Pete?
the gold standard for a reason, Pete. Follow that up.
Yeah, well, I'm still suffering from a bit of reflux and chewing my words from last Wednesday night when I said if Sturt and Rebels play, if Sturt's at full strength, the Rebels won't get near them. Rebels fought hard and they played absolutely to the death like we've seen them do on multiple occasions this year. This is not a walk-up for the Magpies. The Rebels will come out hard. They will play the full 7 innings hard, and I really think it's going to be a cracker of a match.
Minor Premiers Port Adelaide have actually lost their last 2 starts, 7-6 against Sturt this time last Wednesday, and Saturday's semi-final defeat at the hands of West Torrens 11-3 in the run rule. That was their heaviest loss of the season.
And I think there's a lot of pressure because of that on Port Adelaide, because it was just 2 weeks ago that we were sitting here. Port Adelaide had won their 8th game in a row. They beat Glenelg, and we were saying, wow, this team has really gelled together. They've won the minor premiership. They've just beat West Torrens. They knocked Steph Trzynski around a little bit. We were saying this team's not going to be beat. Like, they're going to roll to the premiership. The expectation was that the Magpies are going to roll to a premiership. And then all of a sudden, that loss to Sturt, where there was that bit of funky stuff happening at the end of the game, they lose 7-6. They got walloped right off the bat versus West Torrens. Now all of a sudden, there's a lot of pressure on the Magpies, who are sky-high expectation, and the Rebels, they got nothing to lose. They're not supposed to be here.
Exactly right. Of Port Adelaide's 4 losses in the minor round, 3 of them by 1 run.
And if you flip it, Glenelg, they have played more games than anybody else, more close games than anybody else, I should say. So they played 22 games, 2 of them were washed out. 14 of them were 2-run or less games, close games. They won 9 of them. No team has come close to challenging that record in close games. So
they know how to win the close ones. Glenelg, comeback queens, you called them that at the top of the show, Eric, proving to be a strong finishing team with a number of come-from-behind wins, including their only win against Port Adelaide, which was in round 12, winning 4-3.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we said the other night, you know, they're fighting hard against Sturt the whole time. They were getting to a position in their lineup they hadn't done a lot. But as we said, they were just putting ball in play. And that's what they've been doing all year, just put ball in play.
And I think if you look at that game, and you watched it, Pete, that comeback win over the Magpies, that is probably the closest metric we have to these teams' full strength this year. Yo Grauer, one of the 2 games that she played versus the Magpies this year. The other one, the Glenelg Rebels, were completely injury depleted. They only had 4 or 5 regular starters. They had already locked in that 4th spot. There wasn't a lot to play for. Port Adelaide were trying to clinch the final. Like, that's the game that you kind of look at as the only real full-strength matchup between them, and Glenelg won it 4-3.
And on that occasion, as we've seen a number of times, as he says throughout the year, they just kept fighting. They did not give up Glenelg, and they went out every time with hope.
Probably not full strength tonight. You'd think Caitlin Carroll, like that season-ending injury earlier in this half of the year, was devastating for that team, but strengthened from Saturday with the addition of Georgia Bevan.
Yeah, and you kind of think that Georgia Bevan was one of the key recruits. There's probably 3 big recruits to this club over the last 2-3 seasons. Georgia Bevan coming back. She's a premiership player. She's played big softball games, won AFLW championships before. Yo Growers won championships both for state and club before. And Jade Peterson, the savvy vet. You bring those 3 players in the mix over the last few years, and all of a sudden a young group has that veteran pedigree around them.
On screen, umpires are having a chat to the 2 team coaches. Nat Brinkworth on the right, Ben Lucas on the left. I think the coaches sent out a memo for the striped
the
rugby
zebras
tops. Yep, tonight. And Pete, the umpires, thanks to MC Sportswear.
Yeah, tonight we've got the standout man. He's always around the place, Kevin Tannenbring on the plate. We've got Ian Gray, the umpire of the year, up at first, and Pete Fairley over at third.
Yeah, congratulations to Ian Gray taking out his first McAuliffe medal for Umpire of the Year, and I think that he was visibly emotional in receiving that award.
Yeah, I was about 1.5 meters from where he was sitting, and he was shocked when he won it. You could tell he was quite taken. They had a few umpires there that would have been in contention. He was quite shocked, and he was a little bit choked up, and he did ask me why I didn't interview him, and I think I know why.
There you go. That's Ben Lucas on screen, Port Adelaide's only premiership coach.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about the magic of Glenelg off the top of the show, but really, if you look at the cold, hard facts and stats on paper, Port Adelaide should win this game. They're the minor premiers. They ripped off 8 wins coming into form late in the year. They have the best hitter of the season in Brie Marcelino. They have a lineup that can power you through 1 to 9. They've been to the last 2 grand finals. They have a lot of playoff experience. This Port Adelaide team, which hadn't made a grand final before 2 years ago, is now on the verge of going to 3. And honestly, they probably should win this game if you're a believer in paper.
Yeah, well, on paper, on the stats, fielding-wise, Glenelg field 904, Port Adelaide field 921. Tick to Port Adelaide. Batting average, 229 for Glenelg, 320 for Port Adelaide. Tick to the Magpies. On-base percentage, Port Adelaide. Slugging, Port Adelaide. Here is their defensive lineup.
Yeah, so we have a look. We've got Liz Engler kicking it off, as she's done for most of the season, in the middle to Jess Golden. We've got Smith up at first, Edwards, who's been phenomenal this year, at second, Charlize Callahan over at third, Brie Marcelino, who had a phenomenal year with the stick. She's out there at shortstop. Jess Maslin, Zoe Thompson, and Jess Nevis are the outfielders.
And I think the big one here is your center fielder on your screen. No Gemma Letton in the lineup today. She is away at a family funeral. Our thoughts are with the Letton family and clan. But Zoe Thompson, one of the rising stars in this state, she's going to get a big game and a big spot as we look at the Rebels lineup. And for me, boys, and Pete, I think for me, you got to take a look at that bottom 4 or 5. Someone in that group needs to come through today.
Well, Brie McGee was on electric from this back half of the season. She didn't start in the A grade this year. She wanted a year off, and she's had been probably one of Glenelg's most consistent, if not most consistent players in the back half. And so she slots in at the 7 spot with the admission of Georgia Bevan, who will bat 2. So a couple to look out for right there. We're about to kick things off. Well, I could talk all night about that. That was terrific. That was terrific. Here we go. Leading off for the Glenelg Rebels is Sydney Horton, the Adelaide Club competition, or the Adelaide Softball Association Pitcher of the Year in the Team of the Year. First pitcher in Team of the Year, Liz Engler throws a first pitch strike.
Pete, you mentioned that Engler pitched most of the year. 123 defensive innings for the Magpies this year. Engler pitched 110 of them. Yeah,
that was brought up the other night of the year.
Great shot up to middle for Sydney Horton. She just sat on that one, drove it up the middle. We got a lead-off single for Glenelg.
Nice piece of the stick there to get it out of the way early, get bat on ball, get the feel of it, get yourself on base and give your team something to push you around, hopefully.
C-Max replay. She saw one, the first one. She got it there again and just drove it. Here's Georgia Bevan. Old school or traditional softball, whatever you want to call it, would suggest bunt. She shows bunt. Horton gets a big jump.
Well, yeah, as you mentioned in the top of the show, Pete, conventional softball was kind of thrown out the window for Nat Brinkworth and Glenelg the last game, and she made a lot of gutsy calls, and more often than not, they came through.
Bunt again. This one is a called strike. The corners coming in hard and heavy for Port Adelaide, trying to defend any short game.
Yeah, and that proved the other night in the Glenelg game when you were saying there's 3 opportunities to do the bunt and advance the runner. They stayed aggressive. They had batters in the box who'd been hitting and were big hitters. So they ran with that play and it paid off.
Bunt down the first baseline and McKenna Smith probably chooses incorrectly, goes to the lead runner, an aggressive defensive play for Port Adelaide, but safely aboard. So it'll be a sacrifice bunt for Georgia Bevan, but the lead runner, Sydney Horton, is safe.
Well, some of the oldest philosophers used to say, win the day with balls in play, and that's exactly what I think Glenelg need to do. It's exactly what West Torrens did when they jumped Port Adelaide for 7 runs. They just put the ball in play, and they made the Port Adelaide defense work. They put a bit of pressure on them to see if they'd crumble, and we'll see what happens here.
Runners at 1 and 2. Courtney Shepherd batting 3 for Glenelg. Shows bunt first pitch, sort of waves at it a little bit. It's a strike. Interesting to see the defense there, leaving second base wide open. Obviously, short play defense would dictate that.
Yeah, we really think that bunt's got to be in play here. Push to 2 and 3 with the on deck of Yo Grauer. That's a really good positive start. You could potentially get runs over the plate early.
1-1 counts. A short game could still be on. Courtney Shepherd, though, been one of Glenelg's standout hitters for the season. Gets after. It's a high chopper to Liz Engler, who fires one across to the lead runner for the first out. Runner still at first and second.
Well, ball in play, and Engler had to throw a strike. I mean, if this goes wayward, it's disaster city with Yo Grauer coming up. I mean, conventional wisdom would have said bunt there as you look at the C-Max replay, but again, Matt Brinkworth kind of knows that these are her 2 best shots with Shepherd and Grauer up now to drive in runs, and she's letting them swing. You
called the game, Eric. Yo Grauer from 5 inboxes, 5 times to the plate, 3 walks, 2 intentional.
Yeah, and she only had 1 strike the entire game thrown against her. There was 2 4-pitch walks, 1 intentional, and then 1 walk on a 3-1 count. She fouled away the only strike she saw. And again, it's the same thing. She is now, this is her 6th turn at plate. She's seen 1 strike, Pete.
In the final series. 2-0 count, so it is a good hitters count. It'll be interesting to see how aggressive Port Adelaide are against the Glenelg 4-hitter. Low for ball 3, so 3-0 count. Sasha Penglace in the on-deck circle. We know, or pick-off attempt at second.
Yeah, made it back comfortably there. It was just a bit of keeping them on the toes. But Sasha Penglace as well on deck. She's had a few opportunities this year throughout the season where she's hit at times. It's been really important. So
that was exactly what I was about to say when the pick-off attempt came through, and there is finally a called strike on Yo Grauer this finals series.
And if you're Ben Lucas, you probably want to tempt fate more with Sasha Penglace, who has a 184 average on the season, but we'll talk about Sasha when she comes up.
Right at the bottom of the zone, on the knee, experienced veteran umpire Kevin Tannebring confidently calling that one, and we've got a 4 count.
We should note Engler pitching right here. She's the woman that took over from the woman in the batter's box, and Yo Grauer is the ace of this Port Adelaide team this year.
We were going to get to that at some stage, Eric, no doubt, because she was fired up in that clash that Glenelg won.
Pete, you mentioned it. Sasha Penglace coming up now. I mean, she has 7 RBIs on the season, but in that crucial win in the game that advanced them to this preliminary final, she had 2 hits in the game, and Penglace was able to put the ball in play when it mattered the most, and she's got a chance early in this one too.
First pitch swinging, it will roll foul, and Port Adelaide, maybe in the back of their mind, it took them 7 batters to get an out on Saturday's semi-final, and they gave up 7 runs, 11 batters against West Torrens.
Yeah, I don't have the stats with me, but those close games you were talking about before, Eric, I reckon at least 2, if not 3 of them were runs that were scored off her bat that got runs over the plate. So that's why she's sitting in that number 5 spot in the lineup, because she can hit a hard ball to the outfield, and with loaded bases, that'd be a great start for Glenelg.
Loaded bases and a 2-strike count on Penglace. Gets after it and goes up the middle, and Montana Edwards just fumbles it. Bevan slides in. She's quick and beats the throw. That slight fumble was all she needed. That's the first run of the game. Here's the C-Max replay.
Yeah, got it down. Just stuck in the glove a little as she was trying to get it out there, Edwards. She's flicked it over and getting through and sliding underneath it. Georgia Bevan fast and down to the plate hard. Gets under the tag before it gets there. Just see the little bobble in the glove was all that probably held it off.
As our very old friend Lee Hull would have said, repeat of earlier message for both what you just said, Sasha Penglace putting the ball in play, scoring the run, and also for putting the ball in play to win the day. That's causing pressure on this Port defense.
Liz Engler goes harder. That was probably the fastest pitch I've seen her throw tonight up against Sophie Kinnear. Sophie Kinnear was on 3 out of 4 times on Saturday's game, twice from error and once from a key loaded bases walk where she brought in a run.
James, you hear coaches say all the time, early in finals games, you want your players to kind of engage early, get themselves into the game. Well, the first 5 batters of the Glenelg lineup have been on base.
Absolutely, yep. The only out so far was a fielder's choice. This one's popped up and an infield fly is called. Montana Edwards makes no mistake this time for the second out, and Bree McGee will now come to the plate. Here's the C-Max replay.
Yeah, ball went up nice and high. Infield fly called really early. Runners just stood on their bases. There was no chance of advancing there, but it's a good out for Port Adelaide with the loaded up bases and Bree McGee in.
It's almost a win for Port Adelaide if they can get out of this only allowing 1 run, knowing that their first 5 got on base.
Well, first pitch swinging for McGee, and Callahan takes a nasty spin off the ground off the first bounce, but able to get a handle on it and fire it across to Smith for the third out. So Glenelg with early intent. Here's the C-Max replay.
Yeah, just spun a little bit awkward there for Callahan. She got down to it though, and then she got the throw. It went out to the right of the first base fielder there, Smith. Had to make a good effort to get to it. If that ball had got past her, there was 2 runs coming through.
I like it. You put the ball in play and you force the defense to make a mistake. You force them to be perfect, and you can see Port Adelaide fighting perfection a little bit in that. Just a little bit late on the throw, a bobble here and there. It does only cost them a run, and nothing hit too hard off Liz Engler, but a lot of balls put in play, and that defense for Port Adelaide's got to tighten up just that little bit, I think.
Well, here's a look at the Glenelg defensive lineup, and they've gone with the same starting formula as they had in their win against Sturt on the weekend, with the exception of Georgia Bevan, or the outfield, I should say. Georgia Bevan's coming to centre field with Sasha Penglace moving over to right field, McGee over to left field. But other than that, what I was talking about was their battery going with the veteran.
And this infield formation is a completely different formation than what Glenelg had at the end of last season. And that was probably the issue with Glenelg last year, to be honest, is that there was too many big innings. They were competitive in games, but always one inning got away from it. That defense has tightened up this year, and some veterans in there have really led to that.
Yeah, apart from the games where they had a few players out with injuries, they've had a fair bit of stability in their lineup, which has been able to allow the players to get used to positions, get used to diamonds and players.
Now let's take a look at the Port Adelaide hitting lineup, and there are just numbers everywhere there.
Yeah, and the sneaky one here is Charlize Callahan. She only hit .258 on the season, but she has a knack of coming up clutch in finals softball. We've seen that throughout her career. She did it again versus West Torrens last week. So Charlize Callahan, look for her, in my books, to have another big game today. But James, the big decision here again was they have 2 starting pitchers, and they've gone with Jade Peterson to start, or open probably the game again for Glenelg.
Well, it may be a flip of the coin as well for Glenelg, as Golden watches that first one go through for a ball. You start Grauer and Peterson, start Peterson and Grauer. It worked for them on Saturday, although Grauer took a little bit of time to warm up into the game, as Golden goes hard and up the middle for a hit. She's looking for an extra base, and she's going to run herself into trouble. Just going for that extra base, a little bit of adrenaline. She's a menace on the bases at the best of times, but she's run herself into strife there, and let's have a look at the C-Max replay.
Hard smack ball there, got out past shortstop, really quickly onto a Bev and fired it in right on key, and she was gone a long way from home. Her only hope was that somehow the fielder dropped the ball or something, because she was well and truly out of her ground there.
Boys, I'm going to create a new stat for this game that we're going to watch, and we're going to call it pressure points. And that's going to be defined as moments in the game where the defense has to make a play under pressure.
Neves pops this one up. It's into foul territory and over the fence, but all infielders converging. I love this stat, Eric.
And right now, it'd be 2 in favor of Glenelg. You can think about when Georgia Bevan slid under the tag at home. It was a slight bobble from Montana Edwards at second, so that's a -1 in the port column. And then another -1 there. They tried to pressure on the defense. When the defense had to make a play, it's now +2 Glenelg in pressure moments. Pressure points, we'll call it.
Pressure points, love it. Port Adelaide actually have 2 players in their lineup that have formerly been a Glenelg Rebel, being this batter, Jess Neves, and later on down the order, Montana Edwards, as she drives it to right field. So 2 for 2 to start the game. Port Adelaide, there is the one out, and Neves aboard with a single.
Yeah, good piece of the ball there. He hits it out to the right side, just gets it beyond Nicholson's glove. Penglaze was there for it, but too quick up the line there was Jess Neves and settles on first.
Now, Jess Golden can fly around the bases. If she's standing on second and they don't make that play, she's standing on third right now with no outs, or even they try to force something and make a play at home. So could have saved a run early on that play.
Brie Marcelino, the hitting award winner for the Adelaide Softball Association.
A Yukon Husky alum in NCAA softball. And Glenelg defense in that elimination final on Saturday, you think about them tagging Belle White out at third, that's another pressure point play that won them the game.
Opposite field hitter, she drives it right side, it's over the head of Penglace, there's extra bases. Marcelina's going to catch Neves, but she had to hold up, the play's going to be at the plate. Another terrific defensive play from the Glenelg Rebels. Neves under pressure from Marcelino, pushing for that third base. 3 for 3 to start the game for Port Adelaide, and there's 2 out already.
That was a cracking hit there, an absolute massive piece of the ball. Got beyond Penglaze, she was running back, had no hope of the catch. She just had to focus on getting it in quick. As you said, Marcelino chasing Neves around the bases. She got to within about 5 metres of her. Neves was out, tanked at the end there, and well played by Glenelg.
How's that for a pressure point, Eric?
Yeah, that almost is worth 2. But
Maslin aggressively gets after this first pitch. It's in foul territory, and Courtney Shepherd goes for it, but it will land foul, so an opportunity. Will that go down as a pressure point, Eric?
Well, we'll find out. We'll answer that, how this goes.
So if the run scores now, it's a -1 on pressure point.
Well, I don't know if that's a pressure point. That's just it's not going to go down as an error, but that's a play that you have to make at third base, to be honest. But I agree with sending the runner there. I think that's fine, sending Neves. That was a strike thrown from Penglaze. The cutoff threw it in perfectly to Horton, and it was a perfect tag. I'm still sending Neves if you have to do that situation again.
And that's great by Nicholson, young player in the game. Sitting there, she's had 2 plays now that she's been involved in. One in getting the throw in from out in the centre field, and then making that cut absolutely on target. Kinnear came over, did she?
Yeah, it went over the head of Nicholson, so they did the relay really well with the trailer behind the cutoff, and it was that player, Kinnear, that threw home
the trailer
for the second out. Maslin has to defend on an 0-2 count, fouls it off to stay alive. These two are old battery partners at Seacombe.
What I do like, though, is that Ben Lucas and Port Adelaide are staying true to form as they've been all year. They go aggressive, they go early, they play the game hard, and they play the game fast. No different here, but Glenelg being ready for it.
Hard ball down the left side. Foul ball called from plate umpire Tannebring.
The C-Max replay will be interesting.
Interesting, you talk pressure plays, right? Let's go back in that first innings with Port Adelaide.
Well, it hit the chalk on the first bounce, and it still travelled left. So great call from plate umpire Tannebring.
The play that was the fielder's choice, Georgia Bevan hit the ball to first base, and she threw it over to try to get the lead runner out at 2. They didn't beat the runner. They ended up with runners on 1 and 2. As a result, the next one got walked, brought it to loaded bases, and then a fielder's choice at 5.
That's a pressure play.
Still 0-2 on Maslin. Goes hard, hits it to the left side, and a 4th consecutive hit to Port Adelaide from their first 4 batters, and they finally bring their first run across the plate.
That was a good piece of the ball again. She just got under it nicely. The one bounce out to the left field. The runner comfortably getting home. Look, we've locked it up at 1 apiece. Runner on first, 2 out though. So It's a fairly even game at the moment.
And look, I don't think it's a pressure play, but that was you think back to early in the count, it was a pop-up in foul territory. Courtney Shepard misread it a little bit. That drops in, extends the at-bat, and allows Jess Maslin, who is one of the best batters in the competition, too many chances to strike.
Well, I'll touch on Maslin in a sec as Callahan watches the first one come through, and Jade Peterson currently under siege at the moment. Jess Maslin named for just the second time in the Adelaide Softball Association Team of the Year. Well deserved. She hit 500 last year and didn't make it. So Callahan tries to get after a high ball, and well, I don't know why she didn't run. That wasn't a foul.
4 for 4.
Was that a foul?
No,
Was it?
went high, went above the bat.
I don't think it was a foul either, and Maslin stays at 1.
There was a noise that came that potentially could have been heard as a bat.
Off the glove.
4 for 4 to start the game, Port Adelaide, and they only scored 1 run.
Well, it just gets tied up with Dandenbring and still makes the catch as she uses the back net to stop the momentum, and that first inning had everything.
Well, it's bizarre because take a look at how Glenelg did it. They had a hit up the middle from Sydney Horton, and then it was a bunt single, a fielder's choice, a walk, a fielder's choice, and they scored 1 run off of it. Like, there was nothing hard hit, and it was 1 hit, I think, for Glenelg in that first inning. Yep. Meanwhile, Port Adelaide go 4 for 4 to start the game, have a triple mixed in there, and they only score 1 run. The scoreboard shows the same, but the results and how they got there, the methodology was completely different.
Yeah, right. Only 1 ball. Only 1 batter got the ball out the infield for Glenelg.
Crazy, right?
All Port Adelaide's have gone out to right field, out to left field, but only 1 ball got out the
So how's
infield.
it 1-1?
That's just, as you said, it comes down to the pressure, comes down to the attacking base running, comes down to making plays at the right time and holding you calm, I guess.
One thing that I think is probably being settled, and again, you know that Yo Grauer is going to pitch this game, is this top of the lineup for Port Adelaide going 4 for 4 to start the game. I would be very surprised if we see Jade Peterson out there the second time through. I think they'll make that switch, just like they did in the elimination final, to Yo as soon as that lineup comes to an end.
Tate Nicholson's going to lead the second inning off for Glenelg Rebels, and on that point, Eric, Jade Peterson still only through to 5 batters. I think if it was a little bit further down the lineup, maybe they would have made the call on Grauer earlier, but I think Peterson will throw another inning.
Looking down the right field line, Yo Grauer's there rolling the arm over already, so she's ready for it.
Nicholson gets bat on ball. It just drops short of Edwards, who has time to recover to make the play. Second play, or second efforts on the play, make outs, and Montana Edwards backs herself. Aggressive after the ball, she attacks it, maybe for the chance for a catch, and
that's a great second effort, isn't it?
It's a huge second effort, and it's the second time also Smith really had to stretch for a ball to get an out at the first base, so great work there by that pair.
And defensively right now, Port Adelaide looking a little shaky, but to their credit, they are battling right now. McKenna Smith twice, like you said, Pete, has had to reach off the bag. Montana Edwards battling just a little bit. You know, they're making the plays. It just isn't looking clean right now.
They look a little rattled still. They just look a little rattled, and I think it's, as you said, it's because Glenelg's actually making them do something with every batter.
I think that's all you can ask for from Glenelg, is just put some pressure on Port Adelaide.
Yep.
Gemma Cochran into the box for Glenelg. She's batting 9. She's playing DP, hitting for Jade Peterson. Fouls that one off. Fouls another one off. A change of pace from Engler, something different. Every batter besides Yo Grauer has put the ball into play so far for Glenelg, and she had a walk.
How happy does Gemma Cochran look back in the lineup for Glenelg?
Just like that, she gets her first strikeout. So Adelaide Softball Association starting pitcher in their team of the year, just picked very late in the season by Steph Trzynski for the pitching award, the Laurie Brown medal.
Well, Sydney Horton, she hit the ball out of the outfield, like you said, Pete, to start this game.
Yeah, and hers was a nice piece, straight up, saw the first pitch, hit the second one down the middle, so she can repeat that.
This
2
was
out, though.
A really good pickup from Glenelg in the offseason.
We're working with their baseball counterparts to pick her up as a dual international, is that what you'd call it? She playing two sports, basically. Multi-sport international. There you go.
Yeah.
Get the terminology
Double
right,
import.
James. Yeah. As she's playing baseball for the Glenelg Baseball Club. So,
But played at Georgia Southern in NCAA. On the Irish national team.
Irish national team. There's her helmet there that shows Ireland on the helmet. And here she is now in Adelaide, swinging the bat in a preliminary final, and goes towards second base, really pushed the ball, and Montana Edwards in the play. That's her fourth play of the game already, and a 1-2-3 innings to settle Port Adelaide in a 1-all ball game.
Yeah, well, that's a bit of a better result there for Port Adelaide. 3 batters in, 3 batters out. They get to come back and now have another crack with the bat. But again, Glenelg, one of them a strikeout, but 2 other players getting bat on ball, putting it in play and making the infield work. So Port Adelaide that was a much more settled play there and a much more confident play.
Yeah, she's been under a lot of pressure, Montana Edwards. She had that bobble, but Montana Edwards has always been kind of known as this tough, gutsy player, and it's no different today. And that's the beautiful thing about this game. You got to have a short memory. You got to bounce back, and that's why you're a player in the starting A-grade side, is because you can put those things behind you and get back to the basics, which Edwards is doing right now.
Eric, you said it on Saturday that the team that lost the major semi-final since COVID hasn't made it through to the grand final yet. Tell me, who's got the advantage in this game? Is it Glenelg with their momentum and their 9-inning game against Sturt? Or is it Port Adelaide, who might be a little bit more fresh?
I mean, we've seen it at the Gillies Shield as well, the Open Women's Championship, the last couple versions of the tournament. The team that has lost that 1-2 game has then lost the game to advance to the grand final.
Well, we've seen it because it's been the Stars.
Yeah, it's not been, but we've still seen it, right? But the point is I think it does favor a little bit to have that momentum. I mean, Victoria ran the momentum in that Gillies Shield a couple years ago, too. I think there is a lot to say about that momentum, but I think that momentum can die early. I think if you are the higher-seeded team, which Port Adelaide is, it's really important that they get a lead early and kill that momentum and that feel-good stuff that Glenelg have, because the longer that Glenelg feel good, the better chance that they have.
Edwards continues this aggressive start for the Port Adelaide Magpies. Let's recap their first inning. Single to centre field for Golden, single to right field for Neves, double to right field for Marcelino, single to left field for
So is our scoreboard wrong then? You just listed off 4 hits and it only says 1 on the scoreboard. Is that wrong?
Absolutely not wrong.
Oh.
The defence from Glenelg made some subsequent plays as Port Adelaide, my point being, Port Adelaide's aggressive start, not only with the bat, but running the bases as Edwards 0-2 count early. Over a ball and holds her hands back well, and Peterson just trying to find an edge at the moment.
Just remind me, James, where did Glenelg finish last year on the ladder?
You've got me
Sixth,
stumped on that
Did they
one.
finish bottom?
No.
Seacombe finished bottom last year. I would say 6th.
I don't. Doesn't matter what the result of this game is for them tonight. That improvement from there to come up with some of their off-field pickups in the off-season, a little bit more development for the young kids that are in this team. They're in a hell of a good place for the next couple of years.
Well, how'd Glenelg finish 3 years ago?
They weren't in the Premier League.
It's an amazing rise.
Yeah.
And Jade Peterson,
Ground ball to third. Courtney Shepherd fires it across to Yograuer for out number 1.
and Jade Peterson in the circle has been a big part of that. You know, a savvy veteran, and she made the move when she didn't have an A-grade team to play on, when Seacombe also was out of the competition right after Glenelg was, and she came back with Glenelg and has sort of helped being a stabilizing presence for this team and has literally given Glenelg a chance to win almost every time they've gone out there. Kept them close, and then this year they finally figured out how to win those close games.
McKenna Smith, heavy swing on the first pitch. I'm looking for Jade Peterson's first pitch strike percentage at 65.7%. So 2 in every 3 first pitches are thrown for a strike for Peterson. Port Adelaide's obviously got a plan, done their homework. We're getting hard, we're getting early on Jade Peterson. fouls this one off.
It's a good point because on the season, 69% of the pitches she's thrown on total of the year have gone for strikes, which is a very high rate. So Jade Peterson strikes out a lot, but that also means you're going to get something to hit.
Absolutely. It means she's throwing them around the right spot. So if you've got one in that sort of area you like, you're going to get a chance from her.
Change of pace. Peterson goes to backhand this one. A little dribbler's going to get an infield single for Smith.
Well, that's some soft pressure just in the right spot.
Yeah, that ball didn't come off very well off the bat and just dribbled, but just out of reach of Jade Peterson. As a result, it took its time getting to Kinnear, who made a very wide choice not to force the throw or rush the throw and just allow the run of the base. With one out, just focused now on the force.
Zoe Thompson, state under-18 representative. Big lead off from McKenna Smith, a cool strike on Thompson. She had a big off season. She went to Canada in the Canada Cup in a youth Australian team and came back and had so much promise, but just kept getting squeezed out of this starting lineup for Port Adelaide as she fans at a high one as Peterson goes up the ladder, getting her start because of Gemma Letton's family tragedy.
Yeah, and I am glad that she's getting some playtime here in the finals because so many of these great...
Pick-off, throws behind the runner, and McKenna Smith with some heads-up running. Really baited Sydney Horton there to get the runner over to 2 with 2 out.
Well, on the point that I was just trying to make there is that Zoe Thompson, a young player, but you think of, Charlize Callahan, Taylor Chillingworth, they were staples in this lineup when they were 15, 16 years old and turned into some veteran players at a young age. It was great to see Zoe Thompson get some game time. Chloe Davis in the same vein, I'm hoping these players, you can see them in the lineup a little bit more going forward on an A-grade side because they're showing a lot of promise.
Yeah, 4 Americans in their lineup tonight. Port Adelaide, they know their future's bright enough that they don't need those imports, but probably this year was the cusp, wasn't it? It was that year where it was maybe too early to unleash their juniors, Hills style, where they did finish bottom with 1 win, but, they blooded Abby Bastion and Zoe Marich, and as Engler puts that one foul to the right side.
Yeah, it's 2 different frames of mind. I mean, Hills have got the presence of going, we're developing for the future, we're building a culture, we're going strong like that to the line. Port Adelaide's in a position where, as you said, they're coming off a couple of premierships. They're in the premiership window again, and they're trying to build the biggest team possible.
Oh, 2 count. Engler fouls this one off, and Peterson, this will be her 9th batter, just golden. Stands in the on-deck circle. There's 2 out, runner on 2. 2 strikes. You'd want to get this one right out of the zone, throw something off pace maybe. Change up is popped up, and McGee gets underneath it and takes a good catch to end the inning. There is a little bit of breeze around tonight, so a sigh of relief for the Glenelg Rebels as Jade Peterson gets through 2.
Yeah, that ball went up high. McGee really comfortable on it from really the moment it left the bat. She only moved a few steps to her right. Very comfortable under the ball and just nicely taken. That completes their once through of the lineup. So 9 batters down now, and the Glenelg only 1 more batter ahead.
Eric, 1 strikeout for Peterson, 5 hits.
Yep, and you know what? She survived, right? She battled through it. She got hit. First 4 batters of the game all had hits, and Jess Maslin drove in that run. Defense helped her out a lot, but what a great bounce-back inning, though, from Jade Peterson. Gets the 3 outs, only faces the 4 batters. Nothing really crushed off her. It was just a dribbler that was that base hit there. So, I mean, Jade bounced back. She had to keep her team tied in this game just to keep that pressure on Port Adelaide a bit. The longer this goes tied, the pressure builds on Port Adelaide, not on Glenelg.
Absolutely, and as we said earlier, Glenelg's got the bonus of the fact they got Grauer under their sleeve to come in when they're ready with her, whenever that may be. So that'll then mean the batters have to get their eye into another pitcher again, even though they would have seen a bit of her. It's a different type of pitching than what Jade Peterson does.
Just quickly, guys, this Saturday is the Adelaide Softball Association Grand Finals. Grand Finals all around the state. The action kicks off at 9:30 with the Premier League Grand Final starting at 7:30 right here on Space Quake Sports. Here's the two-hitter for Glenelg, leading off the third inning, Georgia Bevan. Was it scored a sacrifice bunt, Pete? I might just get you to double-check that. I don't know if you got the I score up or not, but she got the ball into play, Eric, and advanced Sydney Horton when McKenna Smith attempted to get the lead runner.
How about Liz Engler under early pressure, though? She had to face 4 batters in a row with bases loaded. She only allowed the 1 run. She's now retired 4 in a row, or not allowed the 4 to get on base. Fielder's choice going to go down as an out, so 5 in a row. So Liz Engler, an amazing job bouncing back from the woman that's just been the innings eater for Port Adelaide this year.
James, wasn't a sacrifice bunt because there was no one out on the play, so it can't be even sacrificed. It was a bunter's fielded choice.
Right. Just trying to feel a bit sorry for the batter there, is in that, you know, she did the right thing in the sacrifice bunt
but gets nothing
situation
for it.
And doesn't get anything for it. It's seems a little harsh. Anyway, Georgia Bevan gets a change up. It goes to the right side. It spins awkwardly, and she's going to get aboard. Well, she's done the job for her team again and won't get credited a hit because that one spun out the glove of McKenna Smith. And here's a look at the C-Max replay.
Yeah, it's going green, that ball there.
Yeah?
Difficult. It's gone as a green marking on the scorebook. So obviously they've allowed for the fact the ball took 2 spins off the dirt and got past the first base there. But again, just put the ball in play.
Well, you're not going to get that one past Marcelino. She is sure-handed at shortstop and takes a good catch. Georgia Bevan retreats back to first base. Marcelino up the middle there as well.
Yeah, she was hanging over there, getting close to second base. She was very, very straight on the play, which was probably lucky because that's where the ball went.
Yo Grauer, 6 walks in a row in this final series. Gets a called strike on an off speed. Now that the walks include intentional walks.
She hasn't had an at-bat in the finals.
And this is her 7th appearance at the plate. And that's the reason why she drills it down the left field line. Jess Maslin dives to stop it from getting past her. It's a stand-up double for Grauer. She's 1 for 1 and 7 on bases.
Take a look at the C-Max replay. Watch this right here. Jess Maslin running down here. There's that little dive to cut it off. If she doesn't make that play, a run very well could score. That's some good fielding from Jess Maslin down the left side.
Absolutely. If she didn't do that little slide, that ball's passed her into the fence, which guarantees at least 1 run and a runner standing on 3. So well played out there by Maslin. One of your pressure acts.
Sasha Penglace, yeah, I think it counts. Sasha Penglace, the RBI hitter from the first inning. Hits it hard, but back to Engler on 1 hop, and she forces the out at 1. There's now 2 out with 2 runners in scoring position.
It's a big pressure point play. You're absolutely right from Jess Maslin there. And now Liz Engler, I mean, can she get out of another jam with runners in scoring position? She's lived with runners in scoring position in this game so far.
Sophie Kinnear, infield fly, her first time, and aggressive this whole game so far. Both teams really getting after the pitches early in the counts. We're not getting much time to go over these terrific plays in the field and give the credit where it's due. C-Max replay will show Engler doing the fielding off her own pitching. 2 pitches in a row for the second and third outs, both with runners on for second and third. And if you want to help advance tomorrow's healthcare and get paid for your time, log on to cmax.com.au.
And we're seeing the change we thought we would as we see
Yo Grauer
coming in. And is that?
Well, I think Cochran will go to first. Yeah.
So the defensively, Glenelg will go down to 9 players with Jade Peterson, the flex player, coming out of the game, the designated player. Gemma Cochran replacing Peterson, and then a positional change, 3 to 1, 1 to 3.
Well, it's a big job for Yo Grauer coming in here. She spent the last few seasons over at Port Adelaide. She was one of the leaders of this team that led them from never even reaching a grand final to winning one, breaking, you can't even call it a drought even if they didn't even get a chance to walk down the aisle. Well, they did. They won their first premiership. They lost the grand final last year. Grauer, in the sensational move of the season, moved clubs to the Glenelg Rebels, and go figure. They break a 7-year drought of finals absence, helping propel Glenelg, keep that culture building, change that fate that Glenelg had. Yo has got them to the finals now. She's going to have to pitch against her former team. And again, the longer this game goes, where it's close, the more I think it favors Glenelg. Let's see what Yo can do.
Is that 4 seasons at Port Adelaide?
4 seasons at Port Adelaide.
4 seasons at Port Adelaide. And, you know, it's a player you can build a team around, and that's exactly what they did. And now Port Adelaide are trying to get to their 3rd grand final appearance in a row. But the lady that got them there on the mound for Glenelg Rebels trying to put a stop to that.
Yeah, and Grauer, she came over here in that season that was canceled by COVID, the final series. That was her first year here. She stayed during COVID and stayed after that, fell in love with lots of things in Australia, and is here, we hope, forever.
Including her fiancé.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we do hope forever. Her team in the Riverland competition got defeated in the grand final without her last weekend.
She also helped break that Stars lengthy drought, winning the Open Women's. Now this is a great battle between 2 former teammates, and Jess Golden and Yo Grauer.
High for a ball. Grauer starts with a rise ball against Golden. And speaking of batteries, it was Golden catching to Grauer last year. She grounds over to second base, Tate Nicholson, and just gives a tough one over to Gemma Cochran for her first play of the game. So a hard hit ball fielded well by Nicholson, and that pressure act as Golden arrives safely.
I think that's a Jess Golden pressure play. You know how fast she is. 13 stolen bases on the year. Caught stealing now twice, once before the start of this game. And that's just a rushed play, I think, knowing that you have some speed on the bases.
Yeah, it kicked up off the second bounce, but she did manage to adjust to that quite quickly, Nicholson, and got the ball nicely into the glove. But then she really threw it quite low, and Cochran ducked down for it and just lost control.
High for ball 1, so maybe knowing that Golden's likely to steal, Neves can also get the ball on the deck. Shows bunt, fouls it off. Golden didn't even look to see if that bunt went down.
I mean, Golden is just so impressive. Even in her college career, she played Division III, and she was a Division III Women's Athlete of the Year finalist, not just for softball, but for all sports in Division III.
Has been called out for leaving early before, and that throw off the knees of Horton goes to centre field, and Kinnear was just pushed a little wide and decided not to go for it to avoid a collision, I'd suggest. Yeah, that throw just off the base there, and good backup from Georgia Bevan.
It's a good pressure point there, too, from Jess Golden. There's her speed.
Absolutely, yeah. She was going on the one before. She went again. Glenelg knew it, but just it's very hard to hold her back.
Now, we know that Port Adelaide like an aggressive fake bunt steal 3. Courtney Shepherd backs back. It's a 2-2 count. So that's why the third base was back that time. Glenelg defense poised. It's popped up to centre field. Georgia Bevan in a good position to keep Golden at bay. There's the first out.
Yeah, nice high ball there, but absolutely under it comfortably was Georgia Bevan. She's already had the good play in the first innings where she got the out of Jess Golden the first time and held that ball, was really ready to get the throw, but Golden not able to advance.
Brie Marcelino leads her team in RBIs with 19 on the season. Golden will steal and slides around the tag. Two stolen base attempts, as this one will go down in the book. She just gets her head down. She really pushes that barrier of leaving early or not, doesn't she? And Shepherd may be just out of place there a little on that one.
Yeah, I think she just might have been probably half a foot too far forward and had to reach back for the tag and can't give Golden a millimetre.
Throw was pretty good. Low for a ball on Marcelino. Now, it almost feels like not a matter of if, but when Golden scores with one out, She stands on third with the hitting award winner, the Mel McGee hitting award winner at the plate.
I mean, the only thing, though, here is Yo Grauer. You think back to the performance she gave her Sturt, especially in extra innings. She had inherited runners, but she struck out the final 2 batters of the game versus Sturt with those runners in scoring position for Sturt to potentially tie or win the game. So it's a strikeout pitcher, Yo Grauer, when she wants.
High, and it's probably catchable as Shepherd gets under it, and it just lands a metre to her right, which is about 10 centimetres from the foul line as Golden.
It's the second time that's happened today. Maslin, they gave her that extra opportunity.
Yeah. Well, and that cost him a run too.
You can't give good batters great opportunities.
2-2 count for Marcelino, who doubled her first plate appearance, got on her bike and nearly overtook Neves. Hard down ball for Grauer. Gee, that one dropped off the plate, and Marcelino, credit to the hitter for being able to get bat on ball on that one.
Yo's probably at her best when she's throwing that drop ball, though.
She is, and when she's throwing the drop ball, she's at her best, and she's really, really good under pressure, as you said before. Like when she gets behind in the count or got a runner in a scoring position, she fights hard.
Goes upstairs this time, and
what a battle.
Marcelino, fouls this one off.
I mean, it's final softball. You got to expect these battles.
Fouls off the down ball, fouls off the rise ball. 2-2 count. Goes downstairs now. I don't know if you guys remember Yo Grauer's first couple of seasons. She was actually known for that change-up, not the regulation change-up that drops 20 kilometres an hour. She used to drop it down 60 or 50 kilometres an hour down to 60 k's an hour. Hammered to left field. Hits the fence on the full. Marcelino's going to have a second double of the ball game. This one has an RBI tagged onto it.
That was a cracking piece, nice and high in the zone, got right out in front of it, and as you said, it's hit the fence 3/4 of the way up here, which has probably prevented her getting all the way around because it hit the fence hard enough it came back to the fielder. I mean, she's just a phenomenal hit.
You can see it on the C-Max replay. That ball was just left up. It didn't have a lot of movement on it. It was one that was sitting there easily for Brie Marcelino to whack. She's the hitting champion of the season for a reason, and again, it was a missed opportunity to make an out in foul territory. You give a good hitter a second chance, and
Eric, pressure acts in this game defensively for Glenelg. Dropped Jess Maslin in foul territory. Then 2 pitches later, she hits an RBI single. Error at first base on a play that probably should have been made. Golden gets safe. Oh, tough bounce for Sophie Kinnear. It was hit really hard at the Glenelg shortstop, and it just skipped and bounced head height.
Yeah, you're right, James. I mean, it must be Easter soon because Port Adelaide are getting a lot of second life.
Just on that too, James, you said Brie Marcelino, her second double. She actually had a triple. She ended up at third on that first at-bat. It was classed a triple, so she's had a triple and a double so far.
Callahan goes first pitch. I'd never even got a chance to finish what I was saying because Marcelino was dropped in foul territory as well. And then a pitch or two later, she hits an RBI shot as well. So
they rise from the dead.
Yep, the 3 opportunities that Glenelg had to shut them out, Port Adelaide have made them pay. Well, that one looked like it was a dead ball off the leg, but it spun into play, and Sydney Horton's asking about it. Yo Grauer was asking about it. Here comes Nat Brinkworth to ask about it as Courtney Shepherd fields it, holds the ball, and
I did see Pete Fairley go to throw his hands up, and then he quickly pulled him down to his chest, so I think he may have seen something.
Yeah, definitely fouled it off into her own foot there because that ball was coming down and in on the batter, and it somehow made its way into the field of play.
This is a great C-Max replay here from producer Brandolino. Yeah, that's off his shin.
Yeah, one bounce into the ground. It spun backwards into the leg of Callahan, and Port Adelaide get another chance here. This time now, loaded bases, and Montana Edwards up to bat.
Well, it was Easter. Now it's Christmas.
Oof. Eric Bolnar on fire this inning. Loaded bases with one out, and Yo Grauer had a similar situation on Saturday where Sturt really fought back into the game, scored 3. But the class of this player was able to shut them out for the rest of the game. But it's Montana Edwards now. The play's been going so quick, I haven't even updated my scorecard.
She grounded out to third last time, Montana Edwards. But last was the bunt single. It might go down as for Charlize Callahan in the book.
And a 3-0 count for Edwards with loaded bases. So Grauer really needing to dig deep here. Goes downstairs and will walk in a run.
3 bases, 3 bases, 3 bases. The error, the dropped catch in foul territory, and now the walk.
Yeah, that's it's hurting him. That's absolutely hurting him. You're right. And, you know, when things aren't going your way, and you've got to find your own way to make luck. And when you're not making your own luck, the opposition will pounce on it.
Here's McKenna Smith. Now, she went hard early against Peterson. This time a little more watchful and something different. She's wearing the signal pattern on the bicep, maybe a little closer to the eyes. In this late night game, as it's high and deep out to left field, it's going to be good enough for an RBI as Jess Maslin crosses the plate. And McKenna Smith, a single and a sacrifice fly in this game, really contributing down the order.
Yeah, big ball high up in the sky. Obviously getting back pretty quickly was Maslin. She held on her base. Really nicely taken in the end by McGee as it moved late, but run scores.
Third run of the inning, 4th for the game as Thompson watches that one through for a called strike. She's in the left-handed batter's box. A switch hitting player, I guess you could say. She can hit the short game from the left side. Third base down, even though there's 2 out. But 2 strikes, she'll move back a little.
This is classy team play here from Port Adelaide. Yeah, they let the big boppers swing freely. Scored a couple runs, but since then, obviously the bunt, Callahan looking to do something different. The walk from Edwards. McKenna Smith just doing enough to get that ball to the outfield. That's working the situation and just cashing in some runs to put their noses in front.
It was only a few weeks ago we saw Thompson hit that ball out to left field that curved. That would have got past where your left fielder is now.
Strikeout looking, so Yo Grauer finds that edge she'd probably been looking for all inning. But 3 runs across the plate for Port Adelaide, and the minor premiers make their move in a 7-batter inning. Here's a C-Max replay. That one was down Broadway.
Look at it move, too. But, I mean, Port Adelaide here, they took advantage here with bases loaded. They had a lot of opportunities, and they've scored now 4 runs from it. Now, here we have Glenelg, and they've had 6 at-bats in this game now with bases loaded. And they've only scored the 1 run. They've had plenty of opportunity, but Liz Patches O'Houlihan Engler has dodged, ducked, dived, and dodged her way out of some trouble early, held her nerve in those situations, and it's that's why it's 4-1. It's one team taking advantage when the other isn't.
Bold strategy, Cotton. Engler is looking the goods, Pete.
Yes, Engler's looking pretty nicely, and she seems to be just winding into her game pretty nicely. As you said, in the first innings they hit her a little bit, but then she came back, fought hard for a 3-batter innings in the second, and then only a 5-batter innings in the last, and the last 2 plays just going back to her. So she's really starting to warm into this game nicely.
Now, Port Adelaide had 49 runs scored against them in their 24 minor round games, so averaging 2 runs against per game.
That's wild.
Postseason, they average 11 runs against them per game, and that's because West Torrens did a number of them on Saturday. But basically what I was trying to say with those 2 runs a game against, their 4 runs are looking pretty good at the moment.
Yeah, and Engler has an ERA of, not a lot. 1 point something.
Yeah, 1.5. McGee hits this one just foul. Yeah, Elizabeth Engler ERA of 1.5, 119 strikeouts from her 110 innings of work. So she's good for a strikeout an inning. She's only thrown the one so far in the game. So she's due for a couple more right here. Eye for a ball, and at this point I've got to put a special call out to Bar 66 for providing the hot chocolate to warm my fingers up. My pen finger has gone numb. It's cold tonight. We were sitting here in shorts last week. McGee fouls this one off to the right side.
I think this shows, though, the blueprint for Glenelg season. They get people on base. They've just, I think there's 5 or 6 that they haven't been able to get across the plate yet, and they've left out there. But as we said, they've only hit 2 balls that have left the infield and gone to the outfield. If they can get a couple of those other ones to start breaking the diamond a little bit, that will get those runners around, and that's been their sort of blueprint all year.
Strikeout looking, and Engler gets that strikeout. We're in the 4th. She's got 2 for the game, both strikeouts looking. C-Max replay, it looked like it started to go high and dropped away. So very nice pitch, good location for Engler. Tate Nicholson now, and Engler in a groove now.
That's a good point you made, Pete. And you think about Port Adelaide, what kind of pushed them over the edge. They had Grauer on their team, and then they brought in Jess Maslin as a big recruit as Nicholson gets ready for this pitch. And that kind of altered, it was sort of a similar thing for Port Adelaide. They got runners on, they couldn't bring them home. They had Yo Grauer in the middle of the lineup, but teams could pitch around her. They didn't have that lineup protection for Yo Grauer. As soon as Port Adelaide had some protection in Maslin, it opened things up. And you almost kind of think it's a similar thing for Glenelg. There's a lot of pieces there, but if they had one more big bopper just in the middle of the lineup, it just sort of rounds that out a little bit more.
Absolutely, just blows open their team nicely and gives them real full-body batting lineup.
Yeah, you look at the likes of Sturt, you look at the likes of West Torrens and Port Adelaide, they have got solid hitters that go all the way through their lineup. So excellent point you make. Recruitment for Port Adelaide's been very important, not only their internationals, Maslin a few years back, as Nicholson fouls this one off. Edwards was a huge return to softball this year after a few years away from the sport. Neves got her back from Glenelg a couple of years ago as well. So they really have brought in some very good recruits for their club.
I like that wine analogy, Pete. That full-bodied wine, there's just, every mouthful, there's something good in this Port Adelaide lineup. And
your mum's visiting from Canada, and I hope you've taken her to a few of the local wineries.
That's to come later this week.
Another strikeout, 2 for the inning, and one of us called that earlier. For Engler, that's 3 strikeouts now.
Yeah, she's really warming into her game. You see here, she just throws one that looks like it's gone and then just goes up and away a little and catches the batter chasing and is never going to contact that one.
Gemma Cochran to the plate. We'll turn it over back to the top of the order, and Sydney Horton waiting on deck, but there's 2 out.
James, I know you said it's quite a cool one and a bit breezy and you're going numb with your fingers. Well, pretty handy little crowd in the stand behind us tonight. The cameras were jumping around a little bit before. There's a fair bit of noise, a fair bit of support. So it's good to see people getting down here on the Wednesday nights.
And kind of building on the point earlier about this lineup construction, and the numbers tell the story. 22 extra base hits this season for Glenelg. It's not a lot. They played
one a game.
Yeah, one a game.
Cochran bat on ball, just evading Callahan.
Port Adelaide, 57.
Yeah, leads the league in extra base hits and slugging percentage. 9 extra base hits, 9 to Marcelino, 13 to Maslin, 11 to Golden. So those three combined have got more than Glenelg.
Marcelino and Maslin have the same as Glenelg. They just line up presence, and they're a team that's, I mean, it's a premiership team. There's premiership players on this Port Adelaide side. But Glenelg, they're a scrappy team. And even here, I mean, it's been 2 strikeouts for Liz Angler, but these haven't been short at bats. Glenelg battling.
And we see Gemma Cochran just placing the bat and fouling it off, doing enough to stay alive, waiting for her pitch.
Yeah, she's had a couple of short sort of punches at the ball here, just getting them out of her zone and getting away so that she can stay in the box, but she's got to find a good one soon.
High for a ball, and Golden just trying to frame it a little bit, but yeah, umpires don't like it when you take it high like that and you drag it down 2 glove lengths.
Yeah, it's a bit of a giveaway when you're having to move your shoulder position to get the ball back into the frame.
Cochran continues to fight these pitches off.
This is the 3rd straight lengthy at bat. They're making her work for it.
And then she just comes in with something special. One came in hot, the other one was a change of pace, this time with a full count. Gemma Cochran, the 9-hitter, had a lot of time off due to injury. Again, just puts the ball into play, and Callahan on a soft roller, plenty of time to steady and get a sharp throw across to Smith for the 3rd out, and Port Adelaide, for the 2nd time in this game, have a 1-2-3 inning.
Yeah, that's another nice little finish there. The 2 strikeouts, obviously Angler sliding to come into her own there in the middle, but the defensive field backing up. Another batted ball into play, but again, just can't get it beyond the infield, and they're going to have to turn that around if they're going to come over the top here.
They look way more comfortable right now, Port Adelaide, in the field.
Yeah, we're in the middle of the 4th, which means the middle of regulation play. We have already seen an extra inning game in this final series, and it was Glenelg that started off red hot. Sydney Horton with a single, advanced on a a bunt by Georgia Bevan. She reached on base. Courtney Shepherd got the ball into play. She reached, although the runner was forced at 3rd. Yo Grauer a base on ball. Sasha Penglace a fielder's choice RBI, and they had their first 5 batters reach, and they scored a run before the Port Adelaide defence stood up. Then it was Port Adelaide. Single to Golden, tagged out going for the extra base at 2. Single for Neves. She was tagged out at home when Brie Marcelino put a shot out to right field. And it was Jess Maslin who was dropped in foul territory, hit an RBI shot to the left side to tie the game. Then defensively, both teams stood up before it was Port Adelaide's big 3rd inning. 8 batters came to the plate. An error to allow Golden to get on, a double from Marcelino after she was dropped in foul territory, a hard hit shot to shortstop for Maslin. Callahan got lucky when she got a dead ball that rolled back into play fairly before Montana Edwards got an RBI walk. McKenna Smith a sacrifice fly, and they scored 3 in that 3rd to go to a 4-run lead. And here we are in the bottom of the 4th. We've got to change.
Yeah, Bron Sawyer's come into the game here. Now she's come in for the flex, and it's meant that Shepherd is going to be an offensive player only in the game.
Offensive
player only. Yeah. So Shepherd, who's had a bit of a tough one at 3rd base tonight. Sawyer coming in.
Engler hits this one hard to the right side. Well, it's a great rule in softball, the flex player. There's a little bit of flexibility in the name as well as what you can do in the position. Defensive player only, offensive player only is Engler. A 2nd pitch in a row goes to the right side, and Penglace has overrun it. She's looking for extras, and she turns 2. She's going to get to 3 easy enough as Kinnear only just receives the ball in shallow right field, and she's pumped for her team. A leadoff triple for Engler.
Now it's just a few mistakes happening for Glenelg in the field. They started off taking away some great plays, but you said it, James, on the call. Penglis just overruns that, and that is a long and lonely run to the wall when that happens.
Yeah, it's gone green in the book, so it's a stand-up triple. Good way to lead off.
Jess Golden to the plate now. A single to centre field, and here's another look on the CMAX replay. If you want to help advance tomorrow's healthcare and get paid for your time, log on to cmax.com.au. Single for Golden so far in this game that she tried to stretch into a double, then got a board from a fielding error from, well, between first and second base, and then made them pay. She easily got to second, stole third, or stole second and stole third before she was scored on an absolute missile from Brie Marcelino. This time she can bring a runner in with Engler on third. Hard hit shot to the left side, just keeps tailing away into foul territory. 2-2 count.
That was a nice piece of the ball, sounded beautiful off the bat, just tailed off with the natural curve on it. I think that one before, I think Sasha just was caught between, was it going to carry to her enough that she could have made an attempt on the catch, or she needed to hold back? She overcommitted on it. And
hard hit shot into the left centre, or right centre alley. It goes all the way to the fence. She's got an RBI to the name. She's quick around the bases. She stands at 3. She's not looking at the play. She could have got home. Celebrating with her dugout. Back-to-back triples for Port Adelaide, and they go out to a 5-1 lead.
Absolutely crunched that ball nicely all the way out. The fielders had to make a lot of effort to get to it. The fielder was only just picking this ball up, and she was going to rounding 2, Jess. So good effort to manage to hold her at 3. She could have probably gone the whole way, but they held her at 3.
Neves swinging a miss on the first pitch.
In saying that, she got about a metre off the base and was cheering to the dugout, and then realised she had to go back and stand on her base. So
Port Adelaide have dug a pretty big hole, and then they pushed Glenelg in it, and now they are starting to grab that dirt and bury them. 3 runs in the third. Back-to-back triples here. They did it with small ball in the third, and now that raw power and aggression that has made this team so fun to watch is helping pull Port Adelaide away.
10 hits for Port Adelaide in this game. Well, Horton held on to that one and made no play at the plate to allow Golden to come in and score. They pumped with a 6-1 lead.
They have overwhelmed Glenelg.
Timeout called. Georgia Bevins coming in from centre field as Yo Grau was looking for that signal. And they just want to reset a little bit here, Glenelg, as you said, Eric. They've just come in and overwhelmed them. 4 hits in the first inning for 1 run, a hit in the second, 2 hits in the third when they scored 3, and 2 triples to start off the 4th.
How's the demeanor of Port Adelaide? You look back in that first inning, they were playing tight, they were playing pressure. That defense wasn't so clean in the field. You could sense they were a little uneasy, but that big inning, James, I think has just opened up their game. They're playing relaxed, they're playing free, they're playing confident, they're playing
terms.
Yeah.
Neves just chops this one foul.
as with many sports, this game's got a lot between the ears as well, and when you're feeling under pressure, things just don't seem to go your way. As soon as you get in front, you get a lead on, that pressure just comes right off and you can just free up the arms.
That's why I really did believe that the longer this game stayed closer, the more the scales would tilt in Glenelg's favor. Port Adelaide had to race ahead. I really felt that. Take Glenelg's in their comfort zone when things are tight. Impressive from Port Adelaide. Playing like premiers.
Outdoor 5-run lead. Just blown away with their aggression and how they've just taken this game by the scruff of the neck. Neves behind 0-2 gets to a full count.
It's 5 runs off Grauer.
Yeah, that's the strange piece for me was that, with 1-1 when Jay walked out of the game and they've opened it up.
Foul tip. She gets a life. Kevin Tannering may have been hit on that foul ball and decides to walk it off. Maybe early opportunities will be what Glenelg lament. No, that one actually hit Horton. Strikeout. Swinging for Neves and the first out to settle Glenelg, but also, maybe even settle the next batter for the Magpies. When that adrenaline is pumping, your first couple of batters have got triples, you're probably going up there with a little bit more confidence than what you should have. Come back, respect this pitcher because she is very good. Marcelino has been exceptional. A triple and a double in this game, an RBI. She's scored twice. An absolute leader in this team. She always seems to have a cool and calm demeanour. She lets the rest of the players take all the hype. Her numbers speak for themselves.
Yeah, talking to her the other night, she said she just enjoyed being here in Adelaide, enjoyed the different challenge and what she's doing here. She's enjoyed the competition and she's really relaxed and comfortable in how she plays here for Port Adelaide. So we're seeing that tonight for sure.
Just a long, powerful swing. And how good has she been at shortstop this year?
Yeah.
One of the quickest transitions between glove and hand that I think I've seen in this competition.
Ground ball back to Grauer at first, and she throws it across to Cochrane for the second out. So after a 2 triples hard start in this inning from Port Adelaide, Grauer has managed to settle it, but she's had to battle to get there. A strikeout against Neves and a ground out to Marcelino. Here's the ever dangerous Jess Maslin, who has 2 singles on the night. Hard first pitch, make it 3 singles for the night. Not afraid to swing the bat, this Port Adelaide team, and Maslin, the former Cathcart medalist, no exception.
No, another nice piece of the ball there, gets past Kinnear comfortably and makes its way out. McGee just holding her up and making sure she doesn't get to 2.
She is grooving, Jess Maslin. All hard hit in the same spot, too.
Yeah, if you had the charts of Jess Maslin, you would see one thick green line going towards left field through the 5-6 hole.
And even when it's hit so hard right at the shortstop, it's almost impossible to field. You saw that earlier. It was absolutely a hit, but it was just drilled right at Sophie Kinnear, and she could do nothing except hope it stuck in her glove.
Callahan drills it hard center field, and Georgia Bevan gets across, moves to her left and takes a good catch right in front of the eyes. 2-run score in the inning. Port Adelaide extend their lead 6-1 in the bottom of the 4th.
Yeah, nice piece of the ball again there. Charlize hasn't had the best night with the bat so far, but that one there, nice piece of the bat. Georgia Bevan gets herself comfortably into the position to take the 3rd out. But Glenelg's going to have to start getting some of these runners on and around now because they're in a dangerous position where it's 5 runs. Obviously, we're not far off the run rule with Port come up to bat and get a couple over the plate. So they've really got to stay alive in here. They're going to have to get 2 or 3 runs at a minimum, I'd think, in this innings.
Yeah, I think they have to make this top of the lineup count, Pete. I think you're absolutely right because you don't know how many more opportunities you're going to have. Yo Grauer, she's coming up to bat, batting 4th on the list right now. They're at the top of the order. They need to get 1 or 2 of these batters on to start this inning. It's Horton, Bevan, and Shepherd that will lead things off. A couple of them have to get on. They have to give Yo an opportunity to make this a game again.
Yeah, they've got to get themselves in position. You're right. Yo she can put a big ball to the outfield into play and get a couple across, but she needs them out there in the first place.
Horton, who led off the game with a single, Switches to the left-handed box. Maybe to give Inglis something different to look at as she hits that outside edge.
Mixing
straight
it
up.
Yeah, the first 5 batters of this game for Port Adelaide reached base. All in a bunch of different ways. There were some fielder's choices and walks in there, I know, but the first 5 all were standing on first. Since then, only 2.
Just throws her hands through the ball. It's going to land in. Maslin went for the diving stop again and it gets away. Horton turns 2 and will stand at 3. She's sent home. She's going to take on the arm of Marcelino. She's going to get caught short. That was an awful tag from Golden. Tagged her right in the face. And Sydney Horton taking exception to it.
Yeah, it was a nice piece of the ball. As you said, it dived in and went out. The ball here obviously curved out nicely. She got herself around. She came home. The ball got in early enough to Golden. But there's a bit of a question here. I don't think there's a fair bit of exception to the tagging method here, and KT just having a little chat to Jess Golden on the side.
That might be the poorest sportsmanship I've seen in this game. She had so much time to tag that runner, and she chose to tag her in the face.
And the other thing, the most important thing there, Horton said, I'm not calling timer, I'm agree I'm out, but that's not on.
Well, Glenelg taking exception. Sydney Horton was thrown out by a long way by Marcelino, but...
Well, first off, also, how about the comeback effort from Jess Maslin here, who was out on a diving play that maybe, I mean, she tried to make this spectacular play, maybe didn't need to dive for it, but she got back up through a strike as the cutoff. Now, you guys know me, if you've listened to me, I love it when runners get sent around third. I think that's the right play most of the time. However, there's the look at the C-Max replay, and this is what you're saying, Pete. She just said, She tagged me in the face.
I'll take the out, but, yeah, look what she's done to me.
She tagged me in the face. She said it twice.
Yeah, she's never denied for 1 second she was out, but she wasn't happy with the play.
But the point I'm making here is I think when you're down 5 runs, like you can't, how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
Right? Now, I don't think you needed to send the runner there. Just leave her on third and try to string together some hits.
Not with batters 2, 3, and 4 coming up.
Correct. Just try to string together some hits. You're going to score that run if you're going to come back, and there would have been the run.
The run would have scored as Georgia Bevan smashes one up the middle. I'm a little shaken. I've got to get my emotions in check here as Georgia Bevan keeps that momentum going for Glenelg. Here's another look at that great throw from Marcelina. And
yeah, that is, you cannot, especially in a world where we're talking more and more about
head clashes,
concussions.
Well, in the AFL, you do something like that, you get 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Very interesting there too. What we picked up on that last replay was the runner, Sydney Horton, actually had to come around the home plate umpire who was standing on the line.
3 hits in a row for Glenelg. Bevan has a look to see how deep it was before she decides to go to third base, and Courtney Shepherd with a single.
And now it would have been 2 runners on and a run scored, and Yo Grauer would have come up there. They're still going to get that opportunity we talked about, but yeah, you eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Exactly what we said at the start.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to get the Yo Grauer with at least 2 on. The top 3 have got to do something. Well, all top 3 have done something. We've got the Yo Grauer, but there's only 2 on. And they would have had a run over.
Hey, I got to give some credit, though, to Sydney Horton. I know a lot of people and players that I've watched and commentated that would have reacted so much differently than what Sydney Horton did. Very classy to stand up and say, hey, that's not on, it's an intentional walk.
Yeah, I think I know your passion for the other sport that we play down here at West Beach, but I think if that had happened in that game, it would have been on.
If that had happened in the Adelaide-Melbourne series that I was calling, it wouldn't have been.
They'd still be going.
It's yeah, we'd be out of it. But like, if that had happened in most other situations, even of other players in this competition, I think, man, that's classy from Sydney Horton, to be totally honest.
Sasha Penglaze watches that one through for a called strike.
I wouldn't have reacted that way. I don't think you would have either, James. Maybe. And you couldn't blame her.
Yeah, she's definitely shown who of the two players has the class in this game. And, well, Glenelg has responded a little bit as well, haven't they? As they have had 3 consecutive hits in the game, then an intentional base on balls to load them up. And here's another at-bat, Eric. You mentioned the stat before with loaded bases.
This is the 7th at-bat with loaded bases in this game, and they've only scored 1 run. And there's some frustration showing.
Yeah, they've got to get at least 2, if not 3 of those over the base somehow. With 2 out, it's not going to be easy. But Sophie Kinnear's come up. She has hit the ball at times to the right side of the diamond. She can do that here. She can probably get a couple across. So you see Sasha Penglace goes out to run here for Yo Grau.
Need a hit here if you're Glenelg. Liz Angler, though, with bases loaded, I am so impressed with the nerves of steel that she has had.
Does that make it 0 for 7 with loaded bases?
It's that old, what did Muhammad Ali say in, his famous boxing tactic? It's the rope-a-dope. You go up against the ropes, you bounce back, you have them where you want to, you let them expend some energy. But the point is, you bounce on the ropes, but you don't fall down. And now she's finding those corners. She's just this great air of focus about her, Liz Angler. She's in a bit of a zone.
Yeah, Angler really standing up for Glenelg. Kinnear chases one high, and she will force out the runner at 1 and leave the bases loaded. And Glenelg failed to score in the top of the 5th, and they're playing on their terms now, aren't they, the Magpies?
Yeah, well, that's, as you said, I think there's about 7 or 8 now left on base in the game. That's a big killer when you're down by 5. You've only got to bring half of them over, and you're only down by 1. So, credit they're getting bat on ball, but they're hitting them to fielders, and unfortunately that's just what's ruining it at the moment for Glenelg. But Port will come out again now, and was it 2 runs on the board? And
Liz Angler has 4 strikeouts, but she's also got 4 assists in this game as well.
Oh, that's a great stat. And again, I just love watching those pitchers that, we talked about pressure points early in this game. Liz Angler deserves all the pressure point checks because she's been under more pressure than anybody else in this game. That's now 8 at-bats with bases loaded. 8 of them. And she has, that's the scoreboard tells it all. She's absorbing pressure. She's finding that focus. She's pitching to her terms. I think you've described that great, James, as Porter playing on their terms.
She's also got a triple to her name, and we are likely to see her come to bat this inning as well. She'd be due up 4th. Montana Edwards would lead things off. She's had an RBI in this game through a 4-ball walk with loaded bases.
And you know what? It's all well and good to talk about a performance where, oh yeah, she came up to the plate and, Liz Angler went through 6 innings, allowed 1 hit. Glenelg didn't look like they're threatened. She was dominant and she shut it down. But I kind of like it when she goes through 5 innings and she's allowed just 1 run, and she has allowed a couple hits. She has been under pressure, because isn't that beautiful? That's like life, right? You're going to get knocked back a couple times. You're going to be in some situations that you're going to struggle with. I think it shows a lot more with how you deal in those moments than when there's not people on the base paths.
Edwards patiently seeing a few. She goes to 2 and 1. I don't know if you've got it up, Pete. I'm going to look for runners left on base.
I reckon I counted it through, and I reckon I had about 7 or 8.
Rebels have scored 1. They have 6 hits, and they've left 8 on base. Port Adelaide, 6 runs, 11 hits, left 5 on base. Both teams really getting opportunities, but Port Adelaide making the most of theirs. Good strike on the outside edge. So Montana Edwards, after an aggressive first at-bat, has had a walk, and now she's on a full count here in her 3rd plate appearance, leading off the 5th inning for Port Adelaide, and just misses the outside edge. And like you said before, Pete, it's in the head as well. Things, when you're down, don't seem to be going your way, and that outside edge may have been called on another day.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're chasing and you're trying to hold them, that's all they can do here is just hold them at bay and then try to get back with the bat again. But when that's what you've got to do, you've only got one thing in your head, and when it doesn't go your way, it makes it very hard.
How would you like to bat sixth in this Port Adelaide batting lineup? Behind Golden, Neves, Marcelino, Maslin, and Callahan. Throw Gemma Letton in there.
Gemma Letton, yeah. Very spoilt for talent. McKenna Smith, a single and a sacrifice fly in this game, shows bunt. And for a batter who's been a lower order batter the entire season for Port Adelaide, she really is contributing tonight. McKenna Smith, she's so clean at first as well. A 961 fielding average on the season, so she's been doing very well with the bat tonight.
A couple stretches at first base tonight.
All season long she's been doing that. And Pete, another point that you made, that leadoff runner means that the batter in the box represents the game-ending run.
Yeah, and if they get back to the top of their lineup, Golden, Neves, Marcelino, if they can get back to their Port Adelaide with a couple of runners in position, you'd think the way that they're playing tonight will almost be a formality.
The buzzword has been pressure, and Port Adelaide have played with pressure from the get-go of almost every one of their innings. This is the 5th inning. 4 times they've had the leadoff runner on.
Smith on a 2-2 count, got lucky on the pitch before, and umpire Tannebring just consoling the catcher after she asked where that missed. Maybe another one going the black and white's way tonight as she fouls this one off. Runner still on one. Gets a shot to left field. It's the second hit of the game. And 3 plate appearances and 3 great contributions from McKenna Smith tonight.
Is she a sneaky C-Max player of the game?
Angler for mine at the moment, but you look at Jess Maslin with 3 hits, Marcelina 2 extra base hits.
Everybody's kind of contributing here.
It's a great team effort, and Engler is actually in the on-deck circle with none out. Zoe Thompson fouls this one over the head of the charging Sawyer at third base. And I'll put it to you, if we're talking C-Max player of the game, and if you want to help advance tomorrow's healthcare and get paid for your time, log on to cmax.com.au. If Engler gets to the plate, there will at least be none or 1 out with runners in scoring position, and they need 2 to end it.
That would probably do it, wouldn't it?
Gets the ball down this time. She's too quick. She beats out the throw. Tate Nicholson couldn't do anything as she was waiting and waiting for that ball to come. It's loaded bases for Engler with none out.
Yeah, a fantastic bunt with her leg speed. She's had a couple of times at bat tonight where the bunt's been in play and she's not done so correctly. She's not got herself on base, but that time was absolute spot on, perfect play.
Hammer in hand for Liz Engler. What a performance she has had. Absorbed pressure, applied pressure, played through pressure. And Engler, it must feel good knowing, her first time around with this Port Adelaide team, they won the premiership. She struggled a little bit at the plate, but now she's a 300 hitter. She was on the team of the year as a pitcher. She is one of the defining reasons that Port Adelaide are knocking on the doorstep of a grand final. She's a pretty good player.
I think she's exceptional. We didn't get to see her pitch a couple of years ago because Yo Grauer did the bulk of the work. As she drives it to the right side and a catch taken by Penglace. The runner wasn't tagging up on any of the bases, so it will be 1 out with bases still loaded and a line drive shot from England deserved better. Yeah, opposite field. Yeah,
that ball there, the way it was hit, it looked like it could have travelled a bit further, and if that was over, it was game done and dusted. Edwards got about 4 or 5 steps off, had to make her way back, so Penglace fielding in that little bit shallower just to make sure the runners were going to get held.
Timeout called from Glenelg and the conversations between the catcher and the coach. It's
Was this going to be an interesting exchange? Like, what happens in these exchanges? You know, you have Horton and Golden after what happened last time, standing a couple feet from each other. Do you say something? Do you?
Horton doesn't seem that tight. The way she played it out before when it happened, she just respectfully moved on, made her point, and walked back to the dugout. So I think bigger things at play here for Glenelg. They've got to get the outs and make sure no one advances. So I think Horton will be completely focused.
And you know, the bigger player would want the strikeout here rather than a hit by pitch or even passing her up.
Well, they can't afford to pass her up. I mean, they're flirting with the mercy rule line right now. A base hit wins the game in all likelihood. I guess it depends where, but Jess Golden is a pretty powerful hitter.
McKenna Smith represents the game-ending run. A walk-off opportunity here. Ground ball to first base as Gemma Cochran plays the lead runner. She was deep. She was a step away from first base and forced the runner out. So we've got loaded bases, 2 out. There will be a catcher speed up. It's compulsory, as Jess Golden will know that rule. She's just trying to play sly there. So not winning any friends tonight, Jess Golden, is she?
In this case, it's the catcher slow down.
Yeah.
There is some serious speed drop-off from Jess Golden to almost anybody in this competition.
Chloe Davis gets her chance.
No disrespect to Chloe Davis.
Yep.
I think you might only be having Chloe last year. You're not that far behind Golden, really, but you're a little bit behind.
Well, that's not a disrespect to any player in the competition. Golden can absolutely fly.
Jess Neves with 2 out and loaded bases. Watches that one for a called strike 0-2.
How many bases loaded situations have we had in this game?
Both teams just onslaught after onslaught as a shot to centre field. And here comes Zoe Thompson. She's quick around the bases, slides in to score 2 runs on the shot from Jess Neves. A walk-off for Neves as Port Adelaide get the job done in 5, 8-1.
Never say Neves. Say yes to the Jess. You have to throw it in there. Very proud woman, Jess Neves, and hitting number 2 in between 2 of the most talented batters in this competition. And it feels very fitting that she's the one that delivers that final knockout blow to send the Magpies soaring through to the grand final. That'll feel good for Jess Neves, but I mean, they just overwhelmed Glenelg in this game. They
did. You know, Glenelg held them early. They kept that tight game in. They got players on base, but as soon as they opened that one scoring innings up where they scored 3 or 4 in it, that really just kept the momentum going for them. They just kept hitting the ball. They kept getting it beyond the infield, and that was the difference. They got it out to the outfield, and Glenelg couldn't get it through the infield.
Well, the 2 teams will shake hands, and the Glenelg Rebels in their first finals campaign in 7 years will go out in 3rd place. Port Adelaide will go through to the grand final. Here's a look at some of the highlights. Liz Engler was sharp in defence tonight. There's that first run of the ball game when Georgia Bevan scored. And then Port Adelaide went bang, 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 bang,
bang.
But only managed 1 in the first.
Yeah, that was bizarre.
In some great defence. There's a great play there from Sydney Horton showing how you tag out at home. And there's Jess Maslin, who was on fire tonight. She went 3 for 3 for the game.
There's so many good performances in here because Jess Maslin, you talk about pressure moments, and I think we might see it in one of the packs, maybe when she made that diving cutoff play in left field, and then later she bounced back after she misplayed a ball in the outfield, and then she had that cutoff, that throw to cutoff to tag the runner out at home. I mean, Jess Maslin was also a great pressure player again.
Oh, Maslin's had a lovely evening tonight. She's done everything really that she needed to do, and when she has made the smallest or minorest of little probably errors, she's come back from it really tough. So great effort by her, really good by Engler in the middle, fantastic obviously by Marcelino. She's had a good night as well, so just really good to see.
And you see her with that tagging there, and it was really this inning where, I mean, they scored 3 runs, but it wasn't anything too hard hit. This Engler one was later on in the 4th that helped them pull away, but that getaway inning in the 3rd, it was just good team softball, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Contributions all the way through the lineup. They were dependable on each other in the defense, and they just knew that they could back one another in the batter's box. It was a tight play at the plate that Golden scored on, and here's that play that we might not forget for a long time as Sydney Horton hits it into the corner. What do you call it? Dead man's alley?
Dead man's alley. But look at Maslin, though. That's a great job back. And look at the strike from Marcelino, though. And that play, I'm sure, will be discussed, and you see Horton talk there. But, I mean, lost in that play, though, we've talked about it all season long. Brie Marcelino, the way she's able to transition that ball out of glove into hand, that play kind of hinged on that right there. Like, it hit her glove, and it was out within seconds for her to make the throw. Still don't think they should have sent her, but that mute point anyways was an 8-1 win.
8-1 to Port Adelaide. They earn the right to face West Torrens on Saturday night at 7:30 in the 80th season of the Adelaide Softball Association and the CMAX Premier League. I can't wait, guys. It's the two heavyweights of the competition going head-to-head. Port Adelaide finished minor premiers. West Torrens finished in second. I've got nothing else to say except we'll see you Saturday night.
Well, what happens when two 18-wheelers go down a one-way street going 80 kilometers an hour dead into each other? I think we'll find out on Saturday at 7:30.
I think it'll be a cracker of a match.